What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind-the-scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. I don't have a plan for this video. I don't have a point, any specific point to make either, so we will start talking and see where we end up. Woman incels are a rabbit hole that made everything a lot more confusing. First, I refuse to use the word femcel because that word has a cute quality to it, and woman incels are not cute. And I mean that in a derogatory sense and in a complimentary sense. Because I've been thinking about the entire incel thing. Because for whatever reason, a reason I feel is important, but I haven't been able to work out, that source spawned a bunch of high-intensity, important cultural shit. And I think at the base, the reason is... What's the idea? What's the big idea? Nothing good comes out of sustained acceptability. And it seemed like most ways to be unacceptable had been co-opted into acceptability. Let's think about punk, for instance. Punk has always been a lame word for lame people, but if nothing else, even if it is based in money-making shit followed by people or trend chasers, there was a time it at least made people uncomfortable. Just the existence was uncomfortable. But now, and again, there was an element of this even from the beginning, but especially now, to be punk, you have to be fucking gay. Derogatory, not positive. Two men kissing, good, nice to look at, a little bit, sometimes. That's homosexual. Whereas punk is fucking gay. And actually, while we're here, because we don't have a plan for this video, little tangent, we talked about this on the Patreon a while back. I think gay meant two things even from the beginning, or the way it was used in a derogatory fashion. And it was unluck that homosexuality, which was one of the meanings, got stuck with the way that word gets used. Because when you call something gay in a derogatory way, the feeling you're feeling or the thing you're attacking is rarely homosexuality. Instead, what I think you're meaning to target is impotence and some primal refusal to understand or inability to understand and accept the way the world works, which is not good. And even today, with all this happy horse shit and these people needing to feel they are moral, on some level, they're still aware, or there's still an awareness. The world isn't what you think you want it to be, or what you want to be. That's why all these super moral people, that's another interesting thing about these super moral people. They're the quickest ones to go into hard reality mode when things get tough. And I'm guessing the moralizing, the need to feel like a good person, to be viewed as a good person, comes from their connection with the way things actually are. That's why they can turn on a dime, and in their minds nothing has changed. Anyway, that unawareness, or that refusal that makes a person weak, combined with the impotence, is what you're actually attacking when you say gay. And unfortunately, homosexuality was the vehicle to make that attack. And another unfortunate thing is every variation of using homosexual words to attack that aspect of life, they're all really punchy, really good words. They're all really good words. Queerness, I think, was like a voodoo doll punching bag. You get beat up as an acceptable outlet for this frustration that's present in way, way, way too many people. Anyway, back to the main point. Punk was this uncomfortable dagger that would get stuck in the side of acceptability until it bled and adjusted. And that's no longer the case, and it hasn't been the case for a long time. I think the reason so many high intensity cultural things came out of the incel thing was the fact that incel was there was no way to do that positively or to say that positively or to mean that positively. It's an ugly, uncomfortable thing for people in it, for people outside it, for things it produced, and for things it attracted. That's why that Fuck Bedroom Punk I'm Incel Core song was so good. It's capturing that feeling, and that's why this whole bedroom punk was always lame. E-punk picked up popularity, but that's fucking gay too. Once again, it's these noble struggler loser dudes who take their opportunity to be potent and make themselves impotent and others impotent by again trying to return to a form of acceptability. Maybe a different form of acceptability, but acceptability nonetheless. Comfortable. Something people can look at and understand and go, yeah, that makes sense, that's good. Because that's another thing. I don't think most people are good at taking that kind of pressure or wearing that mantle. They want to be accepted. Like those motherfuckers, I think it was in the Continental Congress. I'm sure it wasn't the Continental Congress. One of those meetings of old great Americans and old dogshit Americans who wanted to appeal to the British. That's what they are. You've been given an opportunity, built for a number of things. Denying the call because the pressure hurts, the pressure is scary, self-image shit, even though going down that route, it's always about, all these things are about making you weak, encouraging you to defang yourself. We're getting off track, even though we don't have a track in this video. The power inceldom had was defused. It died on the vine. It doesn't mean much anymore. It maybe has a little power, but nowhere near as much. And I think that is a result of everybody trying to separate themselves from it, not realizing why they showed up there in the first place. Because I really don't think the incel thing was all about sexless men. That was the ugly, uncomfortable core, but similarly to the word gay, but in a positive way, depending on how you look at it, that core became the source of power from which other people channeled other things. So the people who were not directly linked to that source tried to separate themselves from it, not realizing where they drew their power from. And I fell into that camp. I'm a virgin. There's no good way to say that. Do you understand how many takes I've done trying to say that in a way that sounds decent? Maybe there is still a little power there. And women bug me sometimes. But I didn't click with the I deserve sex because I'm a nice guy thing. That's weak on a gaming level. And I use you're a beta male gamer. Gaming is a word that doesn't strictly relate to gaming, but, gaming a situation. If you want something, then figure out how to get it, not sit there and whine and expect. And also, thanks to my extreme fetishism, just getting your dick sucked is not gonna do it. And Jane dipshit on the street won't be able to satisfy you in the transcendent ways you need to be satisfied. Anything less would be doing it all a disservice. And on top of that, you probably have some unresolved, fucked up stuff you're not even aware of that consistently makes you turn away from physical contact. Anyway, that entire way of looking at things didn't speak to me, which is why I wanted to distance myself from it. But thankfully, something about it clicked, realizing that exact ugliness is the source of this, whatever this power is. But now there's not a lot of power there because it's not settled, but that energy spike is done. Over and done. And now I'm waiting and wondering what the next really uncomfortable but powerful thing will be. And this is in part why I'm bringing up, or started the video with, Womancels. They are fucked up. I don't think people realize how fucked up they are. When you're dealing in incel cultural stuff, or cultural spheres, you're aware of them, you know they're around, and there's a fair number of them, but you assume they are, well, you assume one segment of them are like the scene queens thing, trend hoppers, dick hoppers too. I don't know how, like, there was a lot of fucking going on in incel circles. Again, making faces that you can't see. And then you assume the other portion are like the standard, or were like the standard 4chan woman. 4chan woman as opposed to woman who used 4chan, because that's another thing in feminine investigations. And INFJ investigations too, Jesus Christ. Firstly, the sort of people you think were using 4chan are not the people who are mostly using 4chan, aside from the Cloudflare Tel Aviv thing. And INFJs are, or at least were when I was dealing closer with INFJs, obsessed with 4chan. Back on point. Oh, and the lesbian cabal. That was my first encounter with advanced lesbianism. Like, hyper vaginal psyops. I'm a lesbian MK Ultra victim. Okay, actually back on point. At that time, when you're in incel cultures, or around those seas, you think you have an idea of what a woman incel is, or a femcel. Well, it's what a cutesy word, hiding the horror. They helped me realize porn addiction is an actual thing. Because that's something you mostly hear dudes talking about. And I think with porn, with dudes, it's like the difference between liking food and being a glutton. As a dude, however you feel about it, you need to undergo your emissions regularly. And if you don't, then your body will make you emit shit for you. And it's like the Jordan Belfort thing in Wolf of Wall Street. Once a day is not extreme. If you get to 3 days without cleansing yourself or being cleansed, it starts fucking with you. So, while yes, even then I was aware porn addiction was a thing, like 5 times every day or more, can't think about or do anything else, yes, you're aware that exists, but you assume that's more of a fringe thing, and what most people call porn addiction or the porn crisis, that's mainly dudes who exist in shame, have been made to exist in shame, and need to select one thing to blame the shitty state of their lives and their souls on that they feel they can conquer, and the environment was just so that porn was the thing. Semen retention was like Neopets, or oh my god, in peak Club Penguin era, Webkins. That's what it was. Semen retention was Webkins. And I still do think that's a big factor in that entire movement. And dicks are really great, dicks are really awful because you can imbue them with mysticism. So this it goes from just being scapegoating everything shitty about your life to also a path to transcendence, its own religious experience. And, you can expel semen and retain it. You can bring it back into your body. That's not a big deal. It's not a spit or swallow situation, it's a wipe up or swallow. And if you aren't swallowing, there's something very wrong with you. It's the poison you expel. You can't, you're damaging the world if you, it's like throwing a grenade out into the world. You're better off swallowing it so the world doesn't have to deal with the damage you're doing to it. Oh, and this is another aspect of why I was dismissive of porn addiction as if it were this huge big problem. The semen retention dudes are relentless with pushing their shit on you. They're like Jehovah's Witnesses. Just as pushy and just as creepy. Except, I don't think irony is the word. There needs to be a word for it, but Jehovah's Witnesses are interesting. I think they have something going on with them that's worth investigating and not on a negative kill it with fire level. But they're still Abrahamic, so they still get the cross at some point. And this all to say, porn addiction, it doesn't just exist. I think it's a bigger problem than people realize, and the people who act like they're most concerned about it probably aren't porn addicts, and they're doing actual porn addicts a disservice. And I learned about this in investigating Womancels. They're gooning. They are gooning nonstop. And this was like one of those moments in a movie. No, this is some Kaiser Soze shit. The signs have been here all along, but you didn't put them together because the common narrative wasn't programmed to detect the actual patterns. You were looking for the wrong patterns. And now that you've realized, it's too late. And it's fascinating because I don't know how to explain this, but everything in the man incel community lines up in some way. It's uncomfortable, it's ugly, but it all makes sense. As in, if you're looking at society as a chain of events, this might not be the direction you wanted society to go, but you can see why this is happening. It was a perfect storm. The narrative makes sense in a historical or social level. The aggression makes sense. Young men are free targets for the most part, and young men like attacking everything. And it almost feels orchestrated because even the defanging of it is almost too perfect. It was like this counterculture adversarial evolution thing didn't arise naturally, it was induced, and then it was defanged, and the entire thing was an operation. But then you have the woman in cells, maybe the true cells. They're a lot weirder because you do not hear about them. Maybe their situation does line up in a historical or social way, but it doesn't feel like it does, and I don't know if that's thanks to social training or if there's some other reason for it, maybe this was an unexpected thing, and I think will be an unexpected thing because you think back and you wonder how long this has been going on, and almost nobody outside their very specific circles know about it in the first place, and then know about it to those extents in the second place. Is it a social fear or pressure from them that stops their talking about it, or is it from an outside, as in they're afraid of consequences, or maybe society's afraid of acknowledging this thing that's going on? Because some people are aware. Cloudflare Tel Aviv is aware. Is it because men needed, or the new generation of men needed to be defanged early, but it's beneficial in some way to leave this growing population, new generation of women stewing? I'm sure in 30 years we'll find out there was a drug aspect to this, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. The gooning isn't what's most concerning, although I'm sure there's something important to that. Thank God we don't have a particular track in this video, so I can go on tangents. Let's think for a moment. Why are birth rates in younger generations plummeting? Common example or excuse is the economy. That's part of it, but I don't think that's all of it. Remember when Patrice O'Neill called the rise of the incel movement years before it happened? Look up Patrice O'Neill, O''Neal, his bit on Fight Club, the longer one. I think it has a lot more to do with hopelessness and fear of one another. Hopelessness because of the lack of opportunities, economy stuff, yes, lack of reward for doing anything, people with power being very excited about getting their opportunity to wield that power on somebody, and that somebody is you. And I feel like if this all came from, if in our frame of reference it came from the boomers, then that must have come out of Vietnam, that desire in that generation that they have handed down and intensified. And cops are getting worse, and if you don't know that firsthand yet, you will. Give it some time. And then the fear of one another level, I think that has everything to do with culture wars and politics, and the antagonism we demonstrate to one another daily. Remember, the only way you can like people is if you don't deal with people daily. If you stay alone, stay in your head, or stay in the very specific bubble of people you limit yourself to. Go deal with the public. Learn what people are, if you haven't yet. But I think a lot of people are learning, even if they aren't learning the lesson in a conscious way, the way I think they should. Distrust is our basic state. Distrust of people we believe are not one of us. And it's unfortunate because you should feel that way. It's like a building or a hallway is burning behind you, and your options are stand still or back up and burn to death, or walk forward and into the shotgun trap that's rigged up. Neither is good. So I think that's why it's not just birth rates, it's relationships in general. And I don't think it's purely the career pursuit thing anymore, because we're aware career pursuit is not, unless you're very lucky, career pursuit won't get you anywhere. Even if you do, it won't fulfill you, but in that fucked up way, I think if you're still doing the career pursuit thing, it's because there's nothing else that feels worth doing. And that's probably a big part of it, is relationships don't feel worth it. You have everything to lose and very little to gain. And then you get into the birth rates, and that's when everything gets even worse. How can you afford to have kids? And if you can't afford to have kids, is this a world you want to bring them into? That's something, it's interesting. I think that's something younger generations think about a lot more than older generations do. They did think about it, and you do hear about it, but that was almost like a joke. These days, dead ass. Is this an environment and a species you want to bring somebody into? Is this a game you want to show people? As in, I'll play Psycho Patrol R because it's fascinating and I already bought it and played it past the point of refund. But I'm here and I can't really go anywhere else. But I won't recommend that hunk of shit to anybody. What does it mean that the male incel thing came on fast and was defanged very quickly, and it still exists, but it's a nothing now? And what does it mean that women are having, or woman incels, or which is an increasing number, are having their own crisis now, but it's totally radio silent? And I think it is a lot of external forces going on there. As in, yes, the shame, fear too, fear of judgment, fear of attack or what have you, but really fear of having happened to them what happened to the dudes, because that was brutal. I mean, they deserved it, but it was brutal. I think in the woman incel also, they're like a kaleidoscope of shit either you don't see talked about or you see talked about in a really stupid, useless way. That's another thing. This video we wanted to talk about. Another great thing that there's no good way to say. I don't think women are inherently lame. I was thinking about Word Girl earlier, and Word Girl is cool. Why are there so many Captain Marvels and not as many Word Girls? I don't think all women are not born lame, but a significant number of women accept lameness and then push lameness on other people. And that must be intentional too, because you have something like Word Girl. This is... modern womanness is a hell both of your creation and of the powers that be's creation. It's a collaborative hell. Anyway, woman sex is in a weird, uncomfortable spot overall, it seems like. Because you have this movement of sexual liberty and all this. This has been going on forever, but it's moving into freakier directions. But that, too, is lame and not freeing. So, there, on one hand, you have a stigma against woman sexuality, and then on the other side, that is supposed to be doing them favors and freeing them, that's also shitty. That's not something you want to be associated with. So I'm guessing that's something... because women are great, freak women are great, because once you, as an individual, a member of society, have tapped into their freakness or uncorked that bottle, it's really nice. You don't need to do much once you've made the space and made everything okay, because at that point it's like a self-feeding fire. Anyway, I think a lot of women are walking around with extreme sexual shame that gets worse when the incel component is brought into it, and they're just fucking gooning. And you wonder, is this a reaction to the shame, or the underlying fear and pressure? And it's tricky because I'm not someone who is opposed to gooning. Even if you want... well, addiction. Even if that's a road you want to walk, if you're happy with it, that's great. Because I'm an alcoholic. I don't drink anymore. I mean, sometimes I drink, but I don't drink often, and rarely is it to excess. Because when I do drink to excess, it's grotesque. But I smoke. Looking at this woman incel thing, it would be like if you realized all of a sudden lots and lots of women were just chain smoking. And I reiterate, I don't know what's going on here, and that's why I'm no, concerned is a word I would use. Suspicious is another word I would use. Because this is not... Nothing just happens. There is a preceding event and a proceeding event. Because I'm not researched on this, this was more of a recent thing that grabbed me and shook me. We're looking at the event right now. We are guessing at the preceding event, and we have no idea what the proceeding event will be, but there will be a proceeding event. And it's the proceeding event I'm most concerned with. Because with men, well, it started with the incel thing, but people or society will use one thing to make changes that affect everything. So started with male incels, turned into men, all men. Men, the proceeding event of male incelship was mass defanging. And that's been going on for a long time, but men really don't have any power anymore. And I think that's accomplished two things. One, lots of men are little tyrants because you see it in me. I'm an example of it. You get one realm in which you can be powerful and feel like you have control of things. Now, to my credit, you people suck, and the extent to which I'm ugly with people is talking shit online and blocking them. But it's still the same symptom. Men have, in huge numbers, turned into little tyrants, and also are utterly powerless to change anything. As individuals, and I think even now as a group. And, oh, Jesus Christ, one commenter... Fuck. No, that was a woman, I think, made that point. This started in the 50s? I was speculating about it, and then she laid down the point by point, yes, this is what you're talking about, it's real, this is what happened. This was a long operation that got the final nail in the coffin, I think, with the way the male incel thing played out. But we aren't seeing the proceeding event with woman incels yet. All we're looking at is the event, and that was more of a fluke, because I didn't even realize this was going on like this. Because it's the same thing with the male incels, it's not just about sex. There is a spiritual problem, and in this spiritual problem, men and women here are distinct. Overlap, but I think the essential issue is different. And I've been focusing on the gooning part of this because I think, once again ironically, woman's sexuality is in a more fucked up place than man's sexuality is right now. But you don't hear about it. And I'm having a hard time because I see this as a big deal. But because women are confusing creeps at the best of times, it's so much more difficult to work out what's going on that this is womanness at its most womanly and creepy, and layers of obfuscation. I'd have a hard time understanding, I think I would have a hard time understanding exactly what's going on, even if it were all in the daylight, and it's not. It's hidden away, yet is everywhere. It's like the locusts from Gears of War were arriving at an E-Day. What I don't want to see is all of the consequences of this stewing problem hit at once past a point anything can be done about it. I mean, I think men's issues can be resolved. It'll just be ugly. Why? It was a subjugation, is what it was. Why were men subjugated so quickly and thoroughly? Because their power is subjugation. This was like this user was banned for this post, or hanging somebody in a public square and leaving them there. This is what happens to you when society decides it doesn't like you. Except it's young men, especially aggressive young men, or rather, independently or individuality focusedly aggressive young men who got the rope. This is what happens to you. A quick, simple resolution, in relative terms, quick, to a relatively simple problem. You're afraid of young men's violence. You violent them hard and fast and thoroughly. Meaning, getting it back will probably take something very similar, except the difference between men and women is man violence is always there, or it's always visible. If, however it might happen, men can all at once overcome their spiritual problems, their essential problems, or are forced to, there will be a wave, a flood of man violence, and then men will be back and rocking and rolling. John Miliuscore. This is a man's world. Right now, it's not a man's world. It feels more like an androgynous bio-laborer world. That's one of the reasons, again, I've been shitting on it a lot. I really don't like... Firstly, they, them is a white bitch thing. You're... Oh, Jesus, you're gonna get a fucking... You're not gonna go full send and get like a man haircut. Like a noble lesbian butch. You're gonna get like a Harry Potter could kind of pass as a woman haircut. You don't want to commit. And then you're gonna give yourself non-committal pronouns without abandoning your original ones either. You're the product of corporate de-essentialization. But back to the woman side of this. I have no idea how the woman side could or would be theoretically resolved. Do you understand? Maybe this is another one of those essential differences. Maybe women understand themselves perfectly. It feels like, do you understand yourself or yourselves, though? Because on the man side of things, however you want to look at it, it's pretty clear. I mean, you can argue details, but you know what a man is and why he is and what he's here to do. And people will judge you for not feeling that way or thinking that way about women, but even when you're trying, at least as a man, again, maybe I'm missing something critical, or maybe this is some basic divide. I have no idea what the fuck women are even supposed to be. You have 50 answers, and some of them are right sometimes, others are wrong other times, but those ones that were right are wrong other times, and the ones that were wrong are right other times. I don't get it. And I don't know how to get it. And that makes figuring out the cause of this growing infection difficult. And it makes thinking about what's going to happen terrifying. Because I really don't think this is something that will avoid consequences. Now, maybe it'll probably be a situation more like, because you don't know something is happening, then when you see the consequences, it's not going to happen all at once. It'll happen here and there over a long time. Because you never knew about the problem, you'll never correlate these happenings or connect these happenings with that problem, and you'll blame something else, and then the problem will continue to go unaddressed. That's what I'm most afraid of is it being shut down so that it can't be understood and nothing can be done about it, because to whatever end this is being perpetuated, it's beneficial for it to cause huge problems sporadically in the background. Is that why this is happening the way it's happening? It's happening so quietly. And this breaks away from everything we've been talking about, but life feels like spawning on a ship that's sinking, and you spend your entire life trying to keep it from sinking so you don't die, until you can get off and hand that fucked up job off to somebody else who will spend the rest of their life trying to keep the ship afloat so they don't die. You can't build anything. All you can do is try to stop the sinking, although the sinking is inevitable. And of course, your getting off the ship is death. So the thing you spent your entire game session trying to do is what you end up with in the end anyway. Just in maybe a less distressing way. And using that example, the way that example sounds isn't the way I feel about life, but I think there's some images happen. I think there's something about that speaks to why woman inceldom is spreading, and probably also why it's happening so quietly, but I don't know, and I don't know how to know. All I can do is look at effects whose causes I can't see and guess at how these effects will turn into future effects causes. I I feel really powerless to do anything about this because I feel incapable of understanding it. But from what I'm seeing, this is bad because this is a big deal. And for some reason, it's being, like, put the kibosh on it. Oh god, there's a better example I could use, or a word or turn of phrase I could use. Blackout. This is the way a dog feels when it's being taken to the vet to be put down. It understands this is irregular, and it can, on a spiritual, noospheric level, sense that something really bad is about to happen. But it doesn't know what's going on, and it can't do anything about it. But boy, does it feel it, and does it see it. It's like you're dissolving. Anyway, 40 minutes. We've made zero progress other than talking in circles and hoping the answer will reveal itself, and it didn't. We'll probably return to this at some point. But for now, video's done. Well, actually, before we go, something that just hit me. There's probably something to the fact the way woman inceldom is playing out the exact opposite way male inceldom played out. There's probably something important to that, but I don't know what it is yet. And I keep trying to end this video, but I keep thinking about things. Do you understand? I'm not mad at you. I'm agitated at the circumstance I'm in, that I can figure out why men do things and categorize them neatly and to be able to predict them well enough. As in the example we used earlier, not just looking at the event in men, but the preceding event and the proceeding event or events. But with women, very rarely am I able to do that, even when I'm trying very hard to. All I have to work with is the event or events. And you can make those events work for you, but deeper understanding eludes you. We can connect on the basic human level, the common human level. Even in typology, you have that common human level, and that's great. And you can get some woman perspective or guess at woman perspective using the effects you see, because those are different from men's, and that's one of the reasons we're trying so hard to figure out this gender versus sex thing, not only for the biological or the cultural side, but also for the spiritual side. But that deeper knowing eludes you. And you'll have people say things like, well, that's because you're assuming we're different, and we're not. But we are. We really are. And any effort to close that gap and to know the difference, it's not pointless, but there's no good way to do it. And that is just maddening because it makes you feel powerless. What's the point of knowing things or practicing figuring shit out if you can't figure out something as essential as man and woman? That's another reason the queerness thing is important. That'll, I think, help us understand that difference. But it's really maddening that a difference that's that common, that's that essential to our lives and to our species and to everything worth living for, is that impossible to understand on a level that you can't even do anything about, other than continue to try and hope for the best. It's maddening. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.